Walibi Holland is packed with intense thrills and wild energy, but not every ride delivers. Let's figure out which ones should stay and which ones should be scrapped. Alright, I'm pretty sure some of these you're going to disagree with, possibly the very first one, and that is Goliath. Now, when I went to the park, I was recommended to hit Goliath first before it got a queue, so I did. I went on it 2 or 3 times when I was there, and I was very much underwhelmed by it. I mean, look, it's not terrible. It's definitely, I mean, there's way worse rides in the park for sure. But I had high expectations for it, and it just didn't deliver for me. So I'm going to start kind of low in the take it or leave it pile, because that's where Goliath should be. And then just kind of around the corner from that is probably one of the worst coasters ever. And that is their Vekoma SLC. Now, again, I didn't have high expectations for this. It's a Vekoma SLC. However, it's got the vest restraints, and I really, really wanted to see how good those vest restraints were, because in my head, I'm thinking if Blackpool put vest restraints on Infusion, it might be more bearable. It made absolutely no difference. Condor is just as bad as every other SLC out there, and honestly, I have no idea why these things still exist. So this one is going in the scrap pile 100%. Alright, so moving on to the headline attraction, and that is of course Untamed. Now this is where RMC have taken their old coaster, which I think was called Robin Hood, wooden coaster, and then given it the RMC treatment. Now for the most part this is very well done, right? I mean RMC, the elements that they can pull are just absolutely bonkers. My issue with them though is I'm not a massive fan of the trains. Those weird leg restraints, and even the kind of lap bar for me, now I think I said this in my video, maybe I'm just the wrong shape, right? Maybe having like small thighs and a big belly is exactly what RMC do not expect, because it just felt like I was jumping out of my seat a lot, which is fantastic, right? That's airtime, happy days, everybody loves airtime. The problem with that though is that because of, well, my size, I was just rubbing against that restraint and it was really, really uncomfortable. So it kind of took away from the experience. I mean, that said, it's an RMC and it is still a good ride. Not one I can ride too many times, I have to say, because it is just uncomfortable for me. But I am going to put it in the keep pile because I appreciate it for what it is. So the park has another Vekoma on site, and that is their boomerang known as Speed of Sound. And I'm not quite sure what to say about this one. I mean, a bit like the Vekoma SLC, this is another cookie cutter template style attraction, right? All Vekoma boomerangs are basically the same layout. Yes, there's a little bit of theming that differs between them, but that's about it. I mean, it wasn't painful like Condor, so that's an improvement. I will keep it because, you know, I try not to get rid of coasters in general unless they're really, really bad. But yeah, there's not much to say about it. On the flip side, there is another coaster that's there that I would put in the same category as Condor, and that is Express Platform 13. Now, I knew nothing about this one, and to be fair, I actually struggled to find it because it's in, so when you walk into the park, there's that kind of building you go through, and in there there's a set of steps that go up to Express Platform, whatever it's called. You can't see it, it's, well, that's a lie. You can see it if you're on the big wheel, right? If you go on that giant wheel, then up the top, you can see it, but otherwise you've no idea what you're getting into. And the queue line's pretty well themed, right? You know, that was pretty good to go through, and then you get to the attraction, and at this point still had no clue what to expect. That launch is ridiculously punchy, and then it kind of falls apart. Now, what I find odd is that I believe this is literally the same layout as Rock and Roller Coaster, and yet Rock and Roller Coaster feels far better paced, it just feels like it keeps going. Now, I don't know if that is in part just because it's indoor and, you know, this one at Walibi Holland is outdoors. So, you know, typically attractions feel faster indoors because you can't see where you're going. Equally though, it could just be some wind resistance, again, impacted by being outside. I was just let down by this. I really, although I didn't know much about it going into it, I came off it and not really want to go back on it again. So, I know I've said I don't like to get rid of coasters, but I'd get rid of this one. Right, so the next couple are a little bit smaller because one of their newer coasters is Eat My Dust. Now, it's obviously a little family coaster, it's not in any shape or form intense. 2-lap special is great for the demographic that it has. The trains are well themed, that kind of June buggy type thing, that's pretty good. But then there's nothing else to it. I'm going to put this one in take it or leave it. Again, I am not the target demographic. I went on it just for completeness, get the cred, get the POV, but yeah, take it or leave it. Another one that's kind of similar is Drako. Now this is another kids or family coaster. It's a bit more intense, this one. Like there's a bit sort of helix style that there's definitely some forces in it. I'm pretty sure that was a 2-lap special as well, if I remember correctly. But again, I mean, I'm not the target audience by any stretch of the imagination. And it's not one, again, I got the credit, they got some footage. I don't think I'll ever go on it again. So I'll put it down as take it or leave it. Now, going to the park, I had expectations that my top coaster in the park would be Untamed. Turned out that was not the case, because this next one genuinely blew me away, and that is Lost Gravity, their Mac Big Dipper, I think it is. Now, to be fair, I went on this 3 or 4 times when I was there. The first time I went on it, I was like, oh, okay, that was all right, wasn't anything special. The subsequent rides I went on it though, far, far better. I think one of the takeaways I got from this park, and look, I get it, it's generally true in most parks, is that coasters need time to warm up, right? Later on in the day, you get far better experience on 99% of coasters than you do first thing in the morning. But it seemed to be a more pronounced difference in this park. Like, the morning rides I had were just boring, and the evening rides I had were far, far better. So, and that includes this one, Lost Gravity, right? It was my first go on it, whatever. But the 2 or 3 other shots I had on it, I just loved it. It was fantastic. So this ended up being my favourite ride in the park, and unsurprisingly, I'll put it in the keep pile. Now, an attraction that I sometimes miss when I go to parks, because it depends on the weather, is their kind of rapids. Now, they've got a set of rapids called Rio Grande. I did go on this one. Pretty sure I went on it on my own. I'm sure my partner didn't come on. And I think I got an entire boat to myself. But it's really bland and boring. I think I criticised the rapids at Drayton Manor for the same thing. There's just nothing to it, right? There's not even any kind of set pieces on the side or any sort of theming. It's just off you go, and there's not any big drops or anything. It was just kind of meandering slowly, and I wasn't impressed with it. So to be honest with you, it takes up a fairly large footprint. I would just scrap the thing. They've got another water ride there though that is the polar opposite, and that is their Crazy River, and this is their log flume. And I absolutely loved this thing. I went on it a couple of times. Got soaked for sure, because that final double down, you definitely get wet. But it's got backwards sections, it's got multiple drops. It's a good laugh. I really, really enjoyed it, and it is definitely one that I would keep in the ride lineup. So the park's also got a Vekoma Madhouse, right? Fairly staple attraction in a number of parks these days. I still stand by the fact that I think Hex is the best one I've experienced. I think I've done about 6 Madhouses now, and Hex still comes out on top for me. This is an okay implementation, don't get me wrong. It's not a reasonably decent pre-show, and then the main event itself. I'm going to keep it, although I'll be honest with you, if it had a long queue, I probably would give it a miss. They've also got a fairly giant wheel, big Ferris wheel, the Grande Roue, something like that. Big wheel, basically it's a big wheel, and it is huge. It's a little bit odd though, in that, I mean, I get it, this is kind of how Ferris wheels often work when they're that size, but basically you get one revolution of it in a very stop-start kind of way, because they'll put you in a gondola, and then depending on how busy it is, they'll probably move 2 gondolas or 3 gondolas, stop it, put somebody in, move it 2 or 3 gondolas, stop it, put somebody in, and then once you've got all the way around, it's your turn to get off. So, you know, I mean, depending on how busy it is, that can be a shorter cycle or a longer cycle. I don't know if it's really quiet, if they'll give you a second go round. They might. I certainly didn't on the couple of times I went on it. It's terrifying, I'll be honest with you. Like, I was like, okay, I think it depends on where you're looking. Like, if you're looking way off into the distance, it's okay. If you kind of look down and go, oh, I'm quite tall up here. Now, there are great views up there, don't get me wrong, and I got a lot of footage of various rides. The express platform thing that I mentioned earlier that I'd get rid of, you can see it from the big wheel. It's the only way you can see it, because it's kind of tucked away at the back. But you can see, I think, every single attraction from up there. It's very well kind of positioned and central. So I am going to keep it, but yeah, terrifying. Now, the park has a number of kids rides, and again, as I've done with other reviews, I kind of cherry pick the kids' rides. I'm not going to go through all of them. I haven't experienced them all, and I probably shouldn't experience them all. But one I did go on, and I guess it's more family, was Le Tour Des Jardins, right? Basically, they're little vintage cars on a track. On the slowest track I've ever been on, I think that ride was close to 10 minutes long, and I'm pretty sure 1-year-olds can crawl faster than it. It is horrific. Now, I don't even know if kids would enjoy this one, to be honest. There's not a huge amount to see. It's a very long track. It goes very, very slow. You pass other cars, and then you're back to the start. If they themed this a little bit better and maybe cranked the speed up just a little bit, you know, even just an extra 20% faster than it is right now. I mean, you don't want one of these attractions that you fly around and you go, oh, I missed it. But there's nothing to see, so there's no need for this to go so slow. So in its current state, I would definitely scrap it. I don't think it's a very good family attraction. So they either need to do some work to it or get rid of it. Now, they've got a wave swinger known as the Super Swing. And I mean, listen, I like a wave swinger. Pretty good ride, I enjoyed it. There was something weird when I went on this though, and that was that one of the seats wasn't, like the buckle wasn't right or something. But the bit that was odd is that they loaded us all onto it and then got engineering to come out and take a look at this seat, who fannied about with it for about 10 minutes and then off he went and then the ride started. Like, in my head, we're all loaded on the ride, let it do its cycle, let us get off, and then let the engineer take as long as he needs. But that's not how they did it. So, I mean, that's more of an operational issue than a ride issue, but I did think that was kind of strange. So, that said, as I say, I do enjoy the wave swingers, so I'm going to keep this one. Now, an attraction that I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get on was the Los Sombreros, right? So it's a flat ride. Funnily enough, the cars look like sombreros and it moves around. I think I'd missed it. I think it was open just before I went and just after, and it was closed when I was there for maintenance, which is typical. Now, I don't know how to put this one because it looks like it could be a good ride, but there's another flat ride coming up that isn't. So I can't tell if it would be good or not, and so I'm going to kind of give it the benefit of the doubt and put it somewhere in the middle and put it in the take it or leave it pile. But if you have been on this one, let me know. Is it actually any good? I mean, I might go back out to this park with Yoi, because kind of curious about those. And if I do, should I go on this ride or not? I am curious. So I just said there's another flat ride, and that is Spinning Vibe. Now, again, this one looks all right visually off-ride. It's kind of, you know, weird spinning thing. If I remember correctly, it did have some odd forces, but it definitely, it's not a ride I'm going to be rushing back on, for sure. So, I don't even know if I want to put it in take it or leave it, to be honest. I think it was quite underwhelming and very slow to load. And so, actually, I want to say this was one of those rides where, to undo the restraints, the guy came around with a screwdriver and just jimmied the bars open. So it kind of feels like it's on its last legs, and maybe they should just scrap it. So the park's got an S&S shot tower, known as Space Shot. And, I mean, it's basically the same as Ice Blast Launchpad. It did feel more forceful, so I am hoping it's kind of an indication of what Launchpad's going to be like at Blackpool when it opens this weekend. Well, the park opens this weekend, chances are it won't. But anyway, it was a fairly good one, and what I did like about it, and again I wonder if Blackpool will copy this, is that because it was a sort of space-themed one, it had a countdown before it launched. So there was that whole kind of rocket taking off thing. Be nice if Blackpool does that. But I did enjoy this one, went on it a couple of times, and I'd definitely keep it. So the next one's another flat ride that, when I was there, I did wonder if this is what was coming to Alton Towers, and that is Blast, their Huss Topspin. Now, I was kind of partly right at that point. There was loads of rumours that a topspin was coming to Towers. Obviously, we've ended up with the suspended model, which is floorless and back-to-back. This model has a floor, and it's the two-tier one, a bit like Ripsaw used to be at Towers. I really enjoyed it. There was hardly anybody on it when I went on it, and the guy just let it keep. I'm pretty sure he did 2 cycles. He just kept it going for ages, and it was good fun. So definitely one I'm going to keep. Right, so the next one is a flat ride that, right, when rides are removed, generally speaking, people are not happy, right? When Enterprise was removed from Towers, people were like, there's another flat ride going, why? Having experienced this one, called G-Force, and which is a perfect name because you pull way more G-Forces on that than you ever did on Enterprise, it gets up to speed really, really quickly, and I'm pretty sure it does go vertical, whereas the one in Towers used to kind of go at a weird angle and not quite get all the way up. You know, it's getting old. This one is fantastic. This is a really, really good enterprise ride, and I would 100% keep this, and I'd actually like to see one of these back in a UK park. Now, a flat ride that I don't think I'd ever been on was Tomahawk. Now, at first I thought, oh, this is a gyro swing. I mean, it kind of is, right? It's that pendulum thing, but the seats are facing inwards and it's got a floor. So like when I've been on the ones that face inwards, it's more the claw, like, what's the park? So Thorpe Park has one of these, right? Can't remember the name of it right now, but it wasn't like that. It was a disc that you were sitting on facing in the way with the floor, and that spins and then it swings. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Don't get me wrong, it is not a gyro swing. I would love it to be a gyro swing, but I would keep it because, well, it's not a bad flat ride. And as I always say, you need flat rides in parks. An attraction that I'd actually completely forgotten about. There's a few attractions I've not covered in here, right? I didn't do the dodgems, etc. But I did do their teacups, which are known as Pavillion De Thé, or something like that. Again, look, kids ride, very much not aimed at me. But I'm pretty sure when I was there, I went on it around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was the 8th person on that ride. So, clearly not popular, and probably another one that they should scrap. Right, I'm kind of surprised by this because I was quite pessimistic about this park when I visited, but based on these numbers, I have a hell of a lot of stuff in keep, and a little bit in the take it or leave it and scrap. So in general, that implies I am happy with the ride lineup, and I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm sure there's things you agree with, and there's probably some that you don't. If you have enjoyed this one, hit that like button. Please do consider subscribing and making this number go up for me. I've been Chris, you've been watching Coaster Dad, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.